For those who don't know, I'm Eden, and with me are my awesome coworkers, Kelly, Kiana, and Clemmy. And today we're doing something a little different, which you might have also seen last month. For everybody that didn't get to come to All In, you did miss, or even if you were at All In, we had breakout rooms. And so you might not have seen all of them. And so Lori and Mike presented on the ripple effect of Parkinson's. And so now they're going to give us kind of a little taste of what they presented on and also a breakout activity so that we can discuss when we get to our breakout rooms. So I'm going to introduce them. Lori and Mike DePorter are from York, Pennsylvania. They have 3 grown sons, 2 daughters-in-law, and a granddaughter. They became, yeah, that's true. They became Lori and Mr. Lori at a PMD Alliance event last year. The team continued in Barcelona and never looked back. Since then, the DePorters have published blog posts, advocated for families facing Parkinson's diagnosis, and collaborated with Kiowa Karen as a family on a project for the National Family Care Partners Month. Their video project, The Ripple Effect of Parkinson's, was a learning experience for those who saw it and the DePorter family themselves. They spoke about communication and Lori's diagnosis and how it affected them. Zachary, the youngest of the 3, described it as a time when dinner was on the table, but the person who cooked it wasn't there. As a community, our stories are important and sharing them can make a difference. Thank you so much, Lori and Mr. Lori, for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I don't know how many of you we've interacted before, but I was diagnosed 10 years ago, and we were talking about how we talked to our families and how we were how we handled our diagnosis. And honestly, we talked about it, and we don't. How many of you actually remember how you told your family? We were shocked that we didn't. I can't remember. It's almost embarrassing, but so please share in the chat or raise your hand. I think we're going to try to make this a little interactive. Correct? Is that correct?
Yep. If you want to either just put the answer in the chat or come off mute for a second.
So, and I don't know if any of you have seen the ripple effect of Parkinson's video. We're not going to show it today, but because it's 7 minutes long, and then there's there's little side videos that came out of it, but you can get it. I have it on my website. Maybe put this in the chat, LoriDePorter.com. There's a link to that, and there's also going to be copies of the slides that we're doing today, the activity we're doing today. So all of this stemmed from the Kiowa Karen project, stemmed from me deciding that our family unit is important and the mental health aspect is important, and I thought it was overlooked, so I kind of started digging into things, and that's how this whole thing developed. So what else?
I think the original question Lori was asking was, when we were first diagnosed, when Lori was first diagnosed, it was a shock to us and it was brand new to us. And our oldest son, Adam, who was at the time in college and he was studying to be a physician assistant. He happened to be at the appointment where Lori was diagnosed, and the news was dropped to her, and it was kind of a shock. So it was kind of introduced to our lives and to one of our sons at that time. So we did not have the time to kind of prepare, how are we going to share this with our children? It was kind of out there already. And at the time, we didn't know anything about Parkinson's and how we should go about telling this. So we were talking actually yesterday. We're learning something every day in that 10 years since. Hey, how did we actually tell the other children about it? And we're like, I don't know. And that's why Lori was asking that question right now, because we don't remember. And I think there was a lot of shock that was going on, but it was something that we didn't hide, and it was something that we got out there. And I think part of the project that we're talking about, when we started having our kids talk, not just to us, but to others as part of that project, we started learning some things, and we started realizing, hey, what we know now, would we have done things differently then? But there's no script. We didn't know.
There's no do-overs.
There's no do-overs. And obviously the people who are going to hear us talk about this now are people who know about Parkinson's. So how do you get the word out there and get people to understand and just talk about, different experiences and how we've learned and continue to learn and try to get the word out about what are the best. There's never a best practices. It's not a one size fits all kind of thing, but just trying to get out there, what we've learned and hopefully get people out there, either the people with Parkinson's or their caregivers, perspectives on this to kind of share what they know and have learned. Sorry, was that too much?
That was a good job. That's why I bring him along. So anyway, so I kept researching this and writing about it, and Kiwa Karen, we did this project, and I sat in the Kiwa Karen project, we did a town hall, and I was sat there with most time going like, really? That's how they felt? I had no idea. So we do have a little slideshow, and then we have an activity. I want you to think about how you shared your diagnosis, who you shared it with. If you had to do it over, what would you do different? And then how do we engage our families? Like, our kids are older now, and we've gotten them involved, and they did the Kiwa Karen thing. Adam, I spoke at ATMRD, and Ryan helped me at All In, the first All In, and now they're kind of immersed in it. And I know Zachary did one of the online groups that was for adult children. So now they're immersed in it and they want to learn about it. But how do you get them there? I just begged them and said, please do this with me. I need help. And the rest was the PD community, honestly. And when Ryan saw how like vibrant it was, instead of like what he thought it should be, he was like, Mom, you need to stay part of this. You need to keep doing this. This is important. So I'm going to do the slideshow. Hopefully. But we didn't go to the beginning. I'm going to go a little backwards here. Don't look yet. Isn't going back. Okay, it's not moving.
Going forward,
Okay, there we go.
going backward.
That's what I wanted to.
Oh, you want to go here? Okay.
Yeah, so this activity was taken from a study that her name's Jennifer Mammon did, and you can there's a link here that you can read more about it. And I have it on the slide, but they did a lot of categories. We just picked 4. And they had open-ended questions, and I took the answers of the open-ended questions and I formed like a choice for everybody. So if you do it in your support group, you can take a copy and have your person with Parkinson's do it, and then whoever's with them do it. It doesn't have to be family, it can be a friend, it can be anybody, because you have to tell everybody, right?
So I'm saying you can't go back.
I want to go forward.
Okay.
What? I don't know why my slideshow is not working here. It worked when I practiced.
You need to get out.
Need to get out? Okay, let me go back to this again. I apologize. Why is this not working?
We always say to be patient with technology because it's only the best when it works.
I might get out of the slideshow, honestly. I'll just share my screen. It might not be as big, but I think it'll work better.
Go back.
No, I want to just do it this way. It's here. All right, so some things we talked about. I will show you this. Okay. This is some of the stuff that our kids said. And you guys already heard this part that Zachary said that there was that I was there, but the food wasn't on the table, or however he referred to me. And Ryan, this was big. Ryan, who was a senior in high school, said there was a lot of talking behind closed doors. Like he knew something was going on, but he didn't know what it really was. And then he actually did his own little video of saying, like, if you have children and you have them, talk to them, tell us how it's going to affect your family now, 10 years from now, 5 years from now. Even though we don't really know, it's not going away. And it's better to come from you than to come from Dr. Google.
Yeah, and I think, again, the biggest issue we have, and we didn't get into enough explanation, probably, we have 3 sons, different ages from 14 to 20, 12 to 20, whatever they were at that time.
Yeah.
And we probably went into too much of a protection mode as parents because of their being somewhat young and didn't really know how to handle it. So we probably did hide a lot of things. And I think that's what Ryan was getting at right there. Like, hey, you know, mom has Parkinson's, but everything's fine and we're going to figure it out and we'll let you know what you need to know. And realizing that, okay, we're not telling them enough. So they're going out and using what's available to them to kind of research and find things out. And that can be dangerous. As we all know, if you go out on the internet and try to find something, you don't always go to the right source or the complete source or get the right information. And getting back to what Lori was alluding to before, one thing we did do right, I guess, was encourage them to get involved in the Parkinson's community, because it's one thing when you hear mom and dad talk, because we are filtering things, right? We're deciding what they're going to hear, but you get them out there in the Parkinson's community and going to events, and people are talking frankly, matter of factly, about what's going on in the Parkinson's world, and they're coming away educated and learning things that they're not learning from mom and dad, not because mom and dad are trying to be bad and not be good parents, but because they're also trying to protect them. And I think that's one thing we learned. And obviously that's going to be different for each different person who has Parkinson's, depending on how old their kids are, what their situations are, et cetera, et cetera. So that was something that we learned as we went through the process. And again, I'm taking way too long from your presentation.
That's
Lori.
okay. No, you're not. No, you're not. This is great. This is great. And the other thing was our oldest son, he was not in the video queue with Kieran, but he was involved like in the town hall that we did with them. And then he actually did an interview with, Ashley Osti from, PMD Alliance. And this is a piece of his interview. Like I went back and read that interview and I almost cried because he was with me when I was getting a test done and the doctor said, I think you have Parkinson's. Just boom. Like I wasn't there to be evaluated for Parkinson's. I was there to be evaluated for something else, and he just kind of thought he saw it. So that guilt has lived with me for a very long time that he was with me, and I was just like, what? But he was, and like Mike said, he was in school, and I really made him more of a doctor and clinician than I did a son, and that was not a good thing to do. He needed me to be his mom. He didn't need me to be dumping on him, and I did. As he said, I knew very little. I just knew enough to be dangerous, and I really regret. That's one thing, if I had to do it, I would not take my kid to any tests because you never know what might happen. So, and one other thing I would encourage people to do is to be diligent with the people around you. I mean, everybody tries to help you. Yes, that's true, but there are also people that can take advantage of families that are in crisis. And you have to be aware of that, because you like to think that there's good in everybody, which there is, but there's also people that look for people in crisis, and that kind of happened to our youngest son. So don't just be diligent with your people around you.
You're just going to have to split when you don't have installation.
Okay. So getting back to the activity, can you guys see the whole activity, or can you just see part of it? I think that just maybe just me. So anyway, there's 4 categories here, all right? I will show them to you bigger, and then we're gonna then we can use this one to combine one for the slide for the activity. Okay, so there are 4 areas, and they're cognitive, psychosocial, movement, and then physical activity. And I would like, when you guys go into breakouts, I want you to, if you're a caregiver or a person with Parkinson's, just evaluate your top 3. And we're gonna talk about it and see how your results fare with like the results that I kind of calibrated from the study and gathered from the study. And then when you do it with a caregiver or in your support groups, see if they're the same. Was what's important to the person with Parkinson's the same as the person, the caregiver or the partner? Because I was really surprised at how much they differed. They really are different. So that's cognitive, that's physical function. And then I just have the results. I'm not going to show those to you yet. So is there anything else we would want to discuss before we go into breakouts? Any questions for us or anything? I know we did a lot. And I actually don't know how many of you go to see a counselor, but I've been seeing a psychologist since the beginning. And if I had a do-over, I would have brought my family with me, because it wasn't just my diagnosis. It was our entire families. And like the project was called Ripple Effect of Parkinson's. What is a ripple effect? When you throw a stone in the water, it just keeps going and going and going and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what Parkinson's is. It's far reaching. It doesn't just stop with the family unit. It doesn't just stop with the person. It affects every aspect of your life. It permeates everywhere. Some people ask me, like, what does it affect? I'm like, what doesn't it affect is an easier question. And the answer is nothing. So I don't know how many people with that, but so should I continue to share, or Kelly, can you figure out how to?
You can stop share. But thank you for sharing, because also I do appreciate, I like it when people normalize talking to someone, because it should be normal. And, we all need sometimes to talk through things. There is a grieving process that comes with a diagnosis, what's going to happen. I did find it interesting though when you were talking, because I thought about what might bother me as the person with Parkinson's versus what might bother someone else, like my care partner, for example. Like I thought, ooh, the cognitive would really bother me. And yet I'm like, yeah, I don't think that would bother him. I think if I had like the mask, that would bother my husband more, because he'd
Right.
be like, you're normally so animated and I'm not getting that from you. So I could see how that would be two very different things. So that's again something to think about in your breakout rooms. We're going to put you in breakout rooms in just a second. We did put the activity reference. So if you want to open it, it's in the chat. This way, as you're doing the activity, you can kind of refer back to it. We have a few links in the chat as well. So I do encourage everyone to save their chat, but I'll remind you of that at the end. In the meantime, I do also want to know if you've approached this topic in your group. So, think about these questions. Think about, to me, I think this would be a great caring and sharing session in your support groups, because I do think people have a story, and I think people like to share their story, but also, talk about, if things are bothering you, what have other people maybe done to resolve some of these issues as well. So without further ado, we're going to put you in the breakout rooms. We're going to be there for give you about 45 minutes. So we'll come back around 5 after or so. We'll see everyone shortly. Welcome back. Thumbs up from Roger. So let's go through, let's hear what people had to say. As always, we joke, this is just a guide, so it's quite possible you spent 2-3 minutes talking about it and then you did your own thing. So group one, let's get started. We've got Dave O, Dave Rivera, and Sheila. What did you all talk about? Who wants to come off mute and share?
We were challenged a little bit. I think I couldn't get the list, and I don't think Sheila could either. Dave saw it, Orlowski. We talked about some of the challenges, the social issues that people with PD experience, and the lack of social activities. We talked about loss of friends, loss of work, and the reality that life has changed and people are socializing with other people that have Parkinson's. So their set of activities pre-Parkinson's have gone away, and there's a new set of activities, which is support groups, events, other people that have Parkinson's. That was a little bit, in retrospect, that's probably a good assessment. The shame of the disease and the self-isolation that it brings. It's something it's also something that I've noticed. And this is self-imposed isolation. It's not that the people around you don't want to talk to you anymore. You're afraid they're going to discover you.
Yes, Sheila?
Hi, I typed in some of the comments in the chat from our group that were expressed. It was difficult for, I think, within the time frame to come up with 12 specific symptoms. That would be 3 from each category. So we did our best. We came up with a few in there in the chat.
Okay. Did you feel though, because 2 of you are care partners and 1 of you has Parkinson's, did you feel like, yeah, we actually didn't necessarily agree on like symptoms that bother us the most? Or
in some cases there was a little bit of overlap on one of the last ones I typed in the chat. And then I think sometimes we may not have the exact same priorities, especially as the disease progresses. But when you hear other people sharing their perspectives, all of a sudden you kind of think, oh yeah, I can relate to that some. But I think that's a really valid discussion. That's definitely worth sharing in support groups, especially because I I know my husband and I talk about it a lot at home. Well, I do most of the talking because he's so reluctant to share unless I really nudge him. But when I do nudge him to share, or I explain to him about the things that are like most significantly on my concern list, then if I pose like 20 questions to him, I can find out like, oh, some of his concerns are different.
Anything else from group one? Okay. Well, thanks for sharing. And now we'll go to group two. We've got David Cox, we've got Karen, and we've got Roger.
I will say one thing, we needed twice the time.
That happens.
We lost 3 people from our group. They had other engagements, but we didn't. Actually, Roger, we didn't talk about specific symptoms until the very end when the issue of dementia came up. And it was said, I think was it you, Roger, who said that anybody who can sign on to Zoom independently basically has nothing to worry about. But we did in fact talk about the issue of communicating with other people about Parkinson's. And I mentioned to Lori and Michael when they got on that we had opposite ends of the spectrum. Greg in Florida communicates regularly. He was diagnosed 14 years ago. Communicates regularly with all of his family, friends, colleagues once a year on the anniversary of his diagnosis, and asks them, what changes have you seen in the last year? And he said initially, the responses were all over the map, but in time, they all began to agree that he was a better person with Parkinson's than without Parkinson's. And I thought that was a very remarkable observation. And on the opposite end of the spectrum was David, whose wife may or may not have Parkinson's. She is not eager to get a diagnosis. His children don't want to talk about it, but David is going to support group meetings and learning, interacting with people and learning a lot from that. I did encourage him to see if he could get his wife to go to that, to meet some people and appreciate them as people. And that's such an important thing, is that we appreciate each other as people and not just people with Parkinson's. And he was going to give that a whirl. So that's your assignment, David, is to get your wife to a group to meet some of these wonderful people that you're communicating with. Another issue that came up was, and I mentioned that in California, and it may be true in other states, is that now when you renew your driver's license, you have to report whether you have a neurological condition like Parkinson's. And that can be kind of a scary thing. And that led to a discussion on driving and when to give up driving, and perhaps having an independent party evaluate your driving, or have your friends report to you if they think that you're not driving safely. But that the whole issue of transportation is important, as is independence that came up. That's important for I think that was one of the things that was on the list, is independence. That's important for people with Parkinson's, and for care partners is maintaining their independence for as long as possible. What have I forgotten, Roger and David?
I thought you'd never ask. Guess what thing? One thing about Karen is very special and unique. She and her husband have their obituaries written ahead of time, so their family won't forget. I think that is wonderful. Good job, Karen.
That is really good planning.
Well, Roger said he'd like to stop and smell the roses. And that's one of the things that I went on to put in my obituary, that literally along the journey of life, I have literally stopped to smell the roses. I mean, every day you should find something that you appreciate, and there's always something to appreciate every day.
Yeah. That is true. Although I will say, as you touched on with the driving, that's so true, because if somebody, for example, is diagnosed with diabetes and they're told they have to give up sugar, that's not easy. But it can be done and it doesn't really affect your quality of life. I mean, I shouldn't say that because I'm a cookie girl, but you can, all function versus when you're told like you can't drive anymore. That's not something easy to give up because that really is your independence. We are not set up for really good public transportation. It's not just like, oh, that's not a big deal. I can just take a bus or it doesn't work like that. And so it's a big deal when you can't drive anymore.
Well, I mentioned that we had a program on alternative methods of transportation in our group a few years ago. And we encourage people before you make that decision to give up your driver's license or pass over the keys to the car, to have alternative plans in place, whether it's family or volunteers or local groups or whatever, to have a plan in place so that when you need to, you can get from point A to point B.
Hey, take on just recently discovered there are new businesses starting for people that want to come pick you up. People can make businesses of taking people to cars, to groceries, to doctors. It's a business opportunity and it's win-win.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Room 2. Anything else you'd like to share?
I think that was pretty much it. We had a good time, didn't we?
You had a fun group, it sounds like. I'm glad. And then in room 3, we've got Corey, we've got Sebi, we've got Kevin, we've got Bernard, and I know Lori and Mike were kind of hopping around, but they landed in room 3 at the end. Who'd like to come off mute and share? Kevin? You came off mute.
Well, I'm new to the group, so this was my first opportunity to engage with this, and had an opportunity to hear from Bernie. I think is the appropriate name. I kept calling him Bernard, so I apologize for that. And about some support groups for people of color and males, and so it would be interesting to and connect with that, and looking forward to it. So we didn't get into the exercise. Ironically enough, we were just really into sharing, and I probably monopolized more time than the group would have normally liked to, as I was introducing myself and kind of telling a little bit about my story.
Welcome, welcome. We're glad you joined us today.
Thank you.
Where are you?
Mhm.
Where are you, Kevin?
I am for 7 months out of the year, we're out in Arizona. And then we go back east for the summer. Gail just, my wife just can't handle the extremes. So we try our best to find a warm climate for her.
So Bernard was really very, very helpful and talked a lot about what they're doing, what he's doing, and his wife and he and his wife are doing. And I didn't really take notes this time, but 2 things that I did write down was that they were told by somebody, Parkinson's is not a death sentence, it's a life-altering sentence, which I thought was brilliant. And he said that that was what he and his wife had talked about from the doctor's office to the car quite when they got the news. And then he talked also about that some people are uncomfortable sharing in a support group. And I know from my own experience and also seeing some things in the support group that I led as a guest one time, that people do pick up other people's pain in the group. You kind of like absorb it indirectly and not on purpose, but it happens. And so I can understand why some people would feel uncomfortable in a support group, whereas other people would feel very comfortable in the support group because the other people in the group get it. They understand what you're talking about. So what he has done in his community, which I also think is very brilliant, is they train some people to just be listeners. And people either in the support group or are not in the support group can call them pretty much sounds like almost, well, almost 24/7, but probably not to be awakened out of a sound sleep in the middle of the night, but, just to talk, and these people who are trained will just listen. I thought that was really good. And we didn't get into the activity either, but I personally, looking at the activity, I think the activity is an excellent one.
Wonderful.
Right.
I used to also joke that I would say Parkinson's is like your mother-in-law. She's not going to kill you, but that doesn't mean you want her around all the time.
Ah, very good.
Whoa.
That's a good one.
I'm not saying anything. This is
You
being
can
recorded.
you
I
can
never
substitute
said
whatever
that.
family member you want, because my
Oh, my
mother-in-law
mom.
happens to
I
be
didn't
quite
say that
lovely.
she did.
Uh,
Get me in trouble. This is being recorded. I never said that. So if we have a couple minutes, can we bring up one of the slides that has like the results and see, we can see what we
Please.
talked about? All right, so can I share again?
Yes.
First, I gotta get to the right slide. Okay. See if I can get to the right one. Which one is this?
Which one do you want?
Okay, I think we wanted to do the psychosocial one. Okay, let me get the right one, promise. There. All right, so this one is on the left is people with Parkinson's, on the right it was care partners. And one thing we talked about was independence is right smack dab in the middle of the page. And how that was important to I have you have the hard copy here. Okay. So you can see so independence. It is much more, it's important to both, but I think it was, how's this work? I think it kind of,
Becomes more important
it
later.
becomes more important in the middle, and then as you get further on in your disease, it's not as important to the person with Parkinson's anyway. And then same thing with independence, like it's very important to the care partners right in the beginning, but then it kind of gets a little more secondary. I thought the other one that was interesting is the impact on your partner.
This is the one that jumped off the page at me when we first looked at
Look
this.
at the
Very at the
difference.
bottom. Impact on partner for the PWP is not that big of a deal, but if you look on the right-hand side for the care partner, it jumps off the page as being a hugely important to them. And I guess that means that we're kind of selfish a little bit.
I think it's the other way around. I think you are really worried about what the effect on me.
Yeah,
No.
so how is that defined, guys?
Well, that's a good question, because my first inclination was I'm taking it from my perspective, the impact on me.
Like he's worried about the impact on me and how it's going to affect him. That's how he looked at it.
Right. So I don't.
But I kind of took it
Wait.
the other way. I took it that you're really worried about me, honey, and I'm not as worried about you.
This isn't my answer either. These are the results of the hundreds of people that took the survey too. So
The other one that was interesting was stigma. The stigma is much more important to the person with Parkinson's than it is to the people around them. I thought that was an interesting one.
I understand though what you're saying, Kevin, because my interpretation was the person with Parkinson's wasn't thinking about their partner, but their partner was thinking about themselves.
correct.
And it wasn't necessarily what is the impact on your partner regardless. It was like,
Yeah,
how
so,
is Parkinson's potentially affecting you as a care partner?
so there should be another asterisk, different interpretations.
Well, but that again is part of the takeaway from this isn't the charts and the numbers and everything else. It's the conversation that goes with it.
Yeah, yes, the process, yeah. See that.
And another one that was very different. That's a cognitive domain. Okay, look at the last one, dementia. And in our one group, we talked about it, and everybody was like, no, I'm not that. Roger's like, I'm not getting it because I'm doing everything I can to not get it. So I thought that was an interesting one.
So does that mean that the family member or partner is more concerned or actually suffers
Yes.
from?
No, you're more concerned. It would be that that's important to you, that matters to you more than it doesn't really matter to us.
And
Well,
and again,
I see, I that's an interesting one because let me place you in the doctor's office, for example, and your neurologist is asking the PWP, how things going? And the PWP says, oh, life is perfect. Life is wonderful. Everything is all right. And the care partner, who's accompanying them, is shaking their head like, no, absolutely not. I see this question in that context. And in my experience, we've talked to a fair number of people, and that's exactly it. The care family around the PWP notices the changes long before the PWP seems to be willing to acknowledge those changes. So as far as they're concerned, I don't have any dementia, I don't have any issues. It's not a big deal. And the family around them is saying, oh no, she's only said that same thing like, or he has only said that like 15 times during the dinner conversation. Or why are they worried? I'm only going to the grocery store. The PWP doesn't seem to pick up on that, whereas the care partner is saying like, oh gosh, I can't even run to the, or I'll quote one, gee, I can't even go to the bathroom. You know, they're falling. So there's a big difference in perspective around dementia, or even
That's
the
an
thought of
interesting,
it.
that's an interesting
And
take. 'Cause I just don't think it's
and,
important to me because I don't want to think about it.
But exactly. And so, Mike, one of the things I like about what you're saying is it's not so much what these things said right here, but if it can get the conversation going, it's needed, because when we talk to people, they don't want to talk about it. Or the PWP especially doesn't want to talk about it. But boy, when we get into care partner only sessions, oh my God, it just comes flying off the chart, you know. And they all say the same thing, but I can't talk about this at home. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going to get beat up, you know. And we definitely see it in the doctor's office. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot going on there, and these numbers reflect not the actual thing, but whether people are willing to talk about it, whether
That's
they're
true.
willing to address it.
Roger, what's your question, bud?
I think too many people accept dementia as it's going to happen sooner or later. We need to talk about it now and start preventing it yesterday. Do activities that challenge us. Any age group can start preventing now. It's not a foregone or given activity that will happen to everyone. I don't accept my brain getting empty. I want to fill it. Thank you.
Good point,
Like
Roger.
they say, you met one person with Parkinson's, you met one person with Parkinson's. So I guess I'll stop sharing because it's time to wrap this up. I think Kelly's. Somebody was kind of.
Thank you for sharing. We do have the slides. And if you do save your chat, if your chat is open, support group leader roundtables, there's 3 dots. If you click on it, you can save your chat. We have Lori's website. We have the Ripple Effect of Parkinson's on YouTube. And so we really just encourage everybody. And we have the link for the slides, which I know Kelly will post them tomorrow. But just if you're curious to look it over, when we're done and you want to check it out, I certainly encourage you to save your chat and do so.
And I encourage you to look at the study, like click on the link that takes you to the article that got me involved in this, because it's very interesting.
And next month, we're going to have Janie Williams here talking. And for this month, though, thank you, Lori and Mike, for sharing yourselves, your story, your experiences with us. Thanks, everybody, for participating. And I look forward to seeing everybody next month. Thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye,